Commander had traveled farther than any human had before. The stars blurred past his ship as it glided through the void, and every moment filled him with equal parts excitement and anxiety. He was chosen not just as a soldier or a diplomat, but as a representative of all humanity, a species that other civilizations barely believed existed. They called humans myths, fragile creatures of legend, yet here he was, standing on the edge of a world that no human had ever touched before. Stretched before him, a planet that seemed alive with color and movement. Its skies shimmered in green and gold, like a living aurora, while silver oceans reflected the strange light in patterns that seemed almost conscious. Cities floated above the land, massive crystal structures suspended in the air by some unknown energy. Every building glowed faintly, pulsing with life, as if the entire planet itself was watching. Could hardly believe that this was real. He wanted to stare forever, but he knew he could not linger. His mission awaited. The moment he stepped onto the surface, he felt the weight of the alien world pressing against him, not physically, but in the way it made him realize how small humans were in the galaxy. His air shimmered slightly, and noticed creatures that moved in patterns he could not begin to understand. Yet despite the alien strangeness, there was an order, a rhythm that made him feel strangely calm. It was as if the planet itself acknowledged his presence, daring him to rise to the challenge. And then he saw her. The queen had descended from her palace, a figure so regal that even the most confident humans might have trembled. She was taller than any human, slender but commanding, and her skin shimmered faintly with a color that shifted like liquid metal. Her eyes, vast and golden, seemed to look through him rather than at him, measuring not just his strength but his spirit. Had trained for diplomacy, for negotiation, but when she stepped closer, words caught in his throat. The stories he had heard of alien monarchs could not prepare him for the presence of someone who radiated authority like a sun radiates heat. "You have come far, human," her voice said, calm but carrying a weight that made the air itself seem to tremble. There was no anger or hostility, only observation, as if she were reading not only his body but the history of his species. Every instinct told him to bow, to speak, to prove himself, but he realized that no words could match the moment. He noticed the nobles around her, their forms delicate yet fierce, shimmering in ways that seemed to reflect their emotions. Some looked intrigued, some skeptical, and some seemed openly hostile. Understood immediately that every movement, every glance mattered in this court. One mistake could undo everything. Humans had never faced scrutiny like this, but he refused to falter. "Your people are far from home," the queen said, her tone gentle now, yet still commanding. "And yet you stand here. Why?" Swallowed, he could have recited a prepared speech, full of diplomatic phrases and careful flattery. Instead, he spoke simply, truthfully. "Because we must. Humans have always reached for the impossible, and if this is the first time anyone listens, I will make it worth your attention." For a heartbeat, the queen said nothing. Then she inclined her head slightly, a gesture so small it could be missed by most, but felt it as an acknowledgement. The court around them remained still, but he sensed the subtle shift, curiosity replacing doubt, attention replacing indifference. That was when he realized the truth. Humanity might be small, fragile, and untested in the stars, but courage and purpose were not measured by size. They were measured by will. And as the queen's eyes lingered on him, knew that this meeting would not just change his life, it could change the place of humans in the universe forever. Every step he took on from that moment forward carried the weight of history, and he was determined that humanity would not be forgotten. The court was unlike anything had imagined. Every corridor shimmered with light, walls made of crystal that seemed alive, pulsing softly with color. Nobles floated beside him on platforms of energy, their forms elegant and strange, shifting like liquid under the light. Every eye in the hall turned toward him. Some were curious, some skeptical, some openly suspicious. Felt the weight of their gazes, heavier than any gravity he had ever known. He was not just a visitor. He was a human, an alien myth standing at the heart of their power. The queen appeared again, descending the grand staircase of her palace with the poise of someone born to rule worlds. Her presence filled the room. Whispers fell silent, and even the energy around the crystal platform seemed to pause. She stopped at the bottom of the staircase, her golden eyes locking on. There was a moment of silence so thick that he could hear his own heartbeat echo. And then She spoke words that no human could have expected. "You are the father of my heir." The room froze. Every noble, every observer, every floating figure turned toward him, and in their silence felt the ground shift beneath his certainty. He blinked, unable to process what she had said. Humans were not meant to be part of their royal lineage. They were a species of stories, a myth whispered in the oldest songs. And yet here was the queen herself, announcing to the entire court that he was bound to the future of her family. The words echoed in his mind, each repetition heavier than the last. Father of her heir, he wanted to speak, to ask for clarification, to deny it or explain it, but no sound came. Instead, his hands clenched at his sides as he tried to steady himself. Every story he had heard about diplomacy or first contact had left out this possibility. No guidebook, no protocol, could prepare a human for being declared the progenitor of an alien dynasty. The queen's expression was calm but resolute. She did not wait for his response. "This is not a question," she said softly, yet every syllable carried authority. "This child will inherit not only my throne but the future of our species, and you human will be part of that future." A murmur ran through the court. Some nobles shifted uncomfortably, their voices raising in whispers. Could feel their thoughts slicing through the air like knives. How could a human have such a claim? How could he be worthy? But he also saw curiosity spark in a few eyes, curiosity and fear intertwined. Humans were fragile, yes, but they were unpredictable, and unpredictability could be powerful. Realized then that this moment would define everything. His species had often been dismissed as weak, primitive, and insignificant. He had spent his life hearing that humans would never be taken seriously in the galaxy. Yet here, standing in the court of the most advanced civilization he had ever seen, a human's presence was undeniable. He was not a visitor. He was part of history. He swallowed hard and finally spoke. His voice was steady, but his mind raced. I do not yet understand how this is possible, but if what you say is true, I will not fail this child. I will do everything I can to honor the trust you have placed in me." The queen's lips curved slightly in the faintest smile, an expression almost invisible yet full of meaning. "I do not doubt you, human, but others may. You will face challenges, you will be tested, and through it all you must remain steadfast for the sake of what is to come." Nodded, though fear and awe twisted inside him. This was no longer a mission of observation. It was personal. Every step he took from now on, every decision he made would carry the weight of not just his life, but of the legacy he had been entrusted with. As he looked around at the court, at the nobles who still whispered and the queen who watched him like a guardian of fate, he felt a strange mixture of fear and purpose. He was a human. He was an outsider. Yet in this moment, he understood that being underestimated was humanity's greatest strength, and he would prove it. Because before the human, the queen had spoken words that changed everything. And now he could not turn back. Life in the court was far more complicated than had imagined. Every day was a test, every glance a question. The nobles were not openly hostile, but their curiosity hid suspicion, and suspicion could turn to danger in the blink of an eye. He quickly learned that the court ran on subtle gestures and silent codes. One wrong look, one misstep, and he could be seen as a threat, or worse, a joke. Rumors began to spread. Whispers filled the crystal halls, carried by servants and couriers, reaching every corner of the palace. Some nobles doubted that a human could ever be fit to father an heir. Others worried about the implications for his future. How can a human guide a child of our species? How can he protect the throne? Every whisper made his chest tighten, but he refused to let fear control him. He had faced impossible odds before on Earth and in space, and he would face them again here. Then came the first test. Communication systems in the palace were sabotaged. Messages went missing or were scrambled, creating confusion among the council. Minor energy defenses failed at precise moments, leaving parts of the city vulnerable. At first was unsure what to do. He was trained for survival and negotiation, not palace intrigue, but he quickly realized the danger was deliberate. Someone wanted to undermine him, to prove that humans were weak, unworthy, and easily discarded. Despite his lack of advanced alien technology, refused to back down. He studied the palace systems carefully, noting patterns that others overlooked. He began using human intuition, logic, and creativity in ways the aliens did not anticipate. A simple rerouting of energy channels prevented the first breach. When sabotage struck again, he anticipated it, turning the attacker's own tactics against them. Every small victory made him more confident, yet he never let himself relax. The court was watching, and one mistake could cost him everything. In quiet moments, the queen would observe him, her golden eyes calm but piercing. She did not offer guidance or interfere. Instead, she allowed him to learn and adapt on his own. "They test you because they fear change," she told him one evening, her voice low and melodic. "They will challenge what they do not understand. But do not doubt yourself, human. Courage and determination are stronger than any weapon they wield." Thought of Earth, of how humans had survived countless hardships despite being underestimated. Every time he faced sabotage, he reminded himself that humanity thrived on resilience. They had crossed oceans, survived natural disasters, and reached the stars while other species doubted them. Here, in the heart of, he realized that same spirit could shape the fate of an entire civilization. Not every challenge came from sabotage, though. The nobles themselves became obstacles. Some questioned him openly in council meetings, their words sharp as claws. They tested his knowledge of law, his understanding of politics, and even his patience. Yet met each test with calm logic, humility, and strength. Every answer he gave, every decision he made, reminded the court that humans could be clever, adaptable, and courageous. Still, fear lingered in the back of his mind. The danger was not only political but personal. The queen had entrusted him with her future child, and failure could mean more than embarrassment. It could mean death or exile. Every challenge weighed heavily on him, but he could not falter. Not now, not ever. Through it all, a quiet bond formed between him and the queen. While the court doubted, she watched, measured, and believed. In her presence found not only guidance but a sense of purpose that transcended duty. He was no longer just a human visiting an alien world. He was a protector, a guardian, and the unexpected foundation of a future that few could yet imagine. By the end of the week, it was clear. Humans were not to be underestimated. Every failure, every test, every whisper of doubt became a lesson in resilience. And as prepared for what he knew would be the next, even greater challenge, he realized one truth: survival was not enough. He had to thrive, not just for himself, but for the child he might one day help bring into this strange, beautiful world. In a place where myths ruled and legends lived, a human was proving that courage, ingenuity, and heart could be just as powerful as any alien gift. And in the shadows of doubt, that power was beginning to shine. The palace was quieter at night, the hum of crystal energy softening into a gentle, rhythmic glow. Commander often wandered through the floating halls alone, yet he no longer felt the weight of solitude. The queen had begun inviting him into her private chambers, not to instruct, but to share. At first, he had felt nervous. Humans were not meant to mingle so closely with royalty, yet she welcomed him without pretense, as though recognizing the value of honesty over status. In those hours, she told him stories of her world, of victories that shaped her people and tragedies that almost destroyed them. She spoke of wars, of rivals who sought to bend her to their will, and of the quiet loneliness that came with the crown. Listened intently, feeling the heavy weight of her responsibility. She was not just a ruler. She was a mother, a protector, and a symbol of an entire civilization. And somehow she trusted him enough to share her truth. In turn, spoke of Earth. He told her about human cities that rose from dust, of storms survived, and of the small, fleeting moments of heroism that defined a species constantly underestimated. He did not boast, but he spoke with pride and sincerity. As he spoke, he noticed the queen's eyes soften. The golden gaze that once seemed so intimidating now carried curiosity and even warmth. He realized that she was learning just as much as he was, that courage and heart were universal languages. One evening, they stood on a balcony overlooking the silver oceans. Twin moons reflected in the water, casting a serene light across the floating city. The queen's voice was quiet, almost vulnerable. "If my court rejects you, I may lose more than allies," she admitted, her words trembling slightly. "I may lose hope for my child." Felt an unexpected surge of emotion. In all his years, he had faced battles, disasters, and moments of despair, but nothing compared to the intensity of this trust. He reached out, placing a hand lightly on the rail beside hers, careful not to overstep. "You are not alone," he said simply. "Whatever happens, I will stand with you, not because I have to, but because it is the right thing to do." The queen did not speak for a moment, but the faintest hint of a smile appeared on her lips. She studied him, golden eyes reflecting the moons, as though weighing the depth of his promise. And then she nodded. That small gesture carried more meaning than any declaration in the court. It was a bond, fragile yet unbreakable, formed in silence and understanding. Days passed, and the connection between them grew. In public, he remained cautious and respectful, mindful of the court's scrutiny. But in private, they trained together, discussed strategy, and even laughed at the strangeness of human and differences. The queen confided her fears about the child, her concerns about the nobles and the heavy burden of legacy. Shared the small, human joys that had kept him going through endless hardships, sunsets on earth, the taste of fresh rain, the quiet companionship of a friend. It was in these shared moments that realized the truth. Trust was more powerful than fear. Connection could bridge worlds, and hope, even for a future as uncertain as theirs, could grow in the most unexpected places. Yet the world outside the palace remained dangerous. Sabotage and whispers did not stop, reminding that the court's doubt was always present. But now he faced it with a different strength. He no longer acted as a visitor or observer. He acted as someone who belonged, who had purpose, and whose heart and mind were committed to protecting the queen and the life she carried. That night, as they stood together on the balcony, the wind brushing against them like a gentle caress, understood that humans were more than myths. They were resilient, compassionate, and capable of shaping destinies. And in the glow of the twin moons, he silently promised himself that he would never betray the trust placed in him. He was a human, she was a queen, and together they had begun to form a bond that could defy doubt, danger, and even the unyielding weight of history. The court might test them, the nobles might plot against them, but in the quiet moments they had found something stronger than politics, stronger than power, something that might just save the future. The palace had never felt more fragile. Though its crystal walls seemed unbreakable, every shimmer of energy now reminded that danger could strike at any moment. He had grown accustomed to the subtleties of the court, learned the whispers, the shifting glances, and the veiled threats. Yet nothing had prepared him for the betrayal that was about to unfold. It started with a council meeting. Nobles gathered in the grand hall, platforms of energy hovering beneath them, their faces calm but eyes sharp with calculation. Had prepared for questions, for skepticism, for testing of his knowledge and loyalty. But what happened next went beyond politics. A rival noble, a figure cloaked in influence and envy, triggered an attack. Energy weapons, cloaked drones, and disguised assassins struck without warning. The air filled with sparks and alarm. Panic swept through the court, nobles shrieking as floating platforms wavered dangerously. Froze for only a moment before instinct took over. He pushed the queen behind him, shielding her with his body. His heart pounded, but his mind raced faster. The palace defenses were sophisticated, yet they relied on predictable patterns. Using a combination of observation and intuition, he rerouted the energy flow, creating barriers that deflected incoming fire. When drones attacked from above, he triggered pressure sensors that sent them tumbling harmlessly into the air. Humans were fragile, yes, but quick thinking and courage could turn weakness into strength. The queen watched, wide-eyed but composed. She had known the court would challenge him, yet even she seemed stunned at the efficiency of his actions. Moved like someone who had faced impossible odds countless times, each decision deliberate, each action saving lives. Nobles who had doubted him now saw not a fragile human, but a force capable of protecting the very heart of their empire. Still, the danger was not over. The rival noble pressed forward, attempting to seize control of the council's energy conduits. Realized that brute force alone would not stop him. He had to outthink the enemy. Drawing on the patterns he had studied for weeks, he lured the nobles' attackers into a trap, turning their weapons against them. Each victory was precise and calculated, a demonstration that humans could combine ingenuity with courage in ways even the most advanced species might underestimate. By the time the chaos ended, the palace lay in disarray. Sparks danced along broken platforms, and the air smelled faintly of ozone and scorched crystal. Nobles scrambled to restore order, while the rival noble was restrained by their own guards, confused and defeated. And amidst the wreckage, the queen stood tall, her golden eyes fixed on. She did not speak at first, but her gaze said everything: approval, relief, and a quiet awe. "You have proven yourself," she said finally, her voice low but carrying authority. not just as a protector, but as someone who can face the impossible and prevail. Felt a surge of emotion. The weight of responsibility was still heavy, but for the first time he sensed that the queen and her court truly understood what humans could do. Even after the attack did not feel triumphant. He knew the court would watch him more closely now, that the rival noble's allies would plot again. Yet there was a spark of something new, respect, and perhaps even fear for a species that had been written off as myth. He realized that survival alone was not enough. Humans had to show that they could adapt, lead, and protect, even when the odds were stacked against them. That night stood beside the queen on the balcony once more, overlooking the silver oceans now calm under twin moons. The palace still bore the scars of betrayal, yet it stood strong. The queen's hand brushed lightly against his, a silent acknowledgement of trust and partnership. In that moment, he understood that courage and quick thinking could change not only a battle, but the perception of an entire species. Humans were fragile. Humans were myths. Yet here in the heart of an alien empire, one human had proven that heart, intelligence, and courage could become a force no one could ignore. And knew that this was only the beginning. The morning after the attack, the palace was quiet in a way that felt heavy with anticipation. Nobles moved cautiously through the crystal halls, their whispers now tinged with awe. Commander walked beside the queen, still cautious himself, yet there was a new confidence in his stride. The events of the previous night had tested him beyond anything he had ever faced, but they had also proven something far greater than survival. Humans could rise above fear, adapt, and protect even the most formidable empire. The queen summoned the entire court to the grand hall. Nobles floated in their usual formation, faces calm yet tense, as if each of them wondered what she would say. Felt the weight of every eye upon him, and for a brief moment he remembered the stories he had heard as a child of humans seen as myths, dismissed before they could prove themselves. He straightened, recalling the courage that had carried him through countless trials, and prepared himself to face whatever came next. The queen's entrance silenced the room instantly. She moved with the grace and authority that had first captivated, but now there was a spark in her eyes, a recognition that what he had done could not be. She raised her hand, signaling for attention, and the room fell completely still. Even the air seemed to hold its breath. "This human," she announced, her voice ringing with power, "has proven himself worthy not only of my trust, but of the future of this empire. He has faced challenges that would have broken many of our own people, and has protected what is most precious to me without hesitation." A ripple of murmurs ran through the court. Some nobles looked stunned, others thoughtful, stood silently, unsure how to respond. He had not acted for recognition, yet he felt a warmth spread through him. This was more than acknowledgement, it was acceptance. After weeks of doubt, of tests, and of whispered plots, humans were finally being seen as equals, not myths. One of the elder nobles, a figure who had been most vocal in questioning him, stepped forward. His eyes were cautious, but his tone carried respect. "If a human can protect the queen and stand against such danger," he said, "then perhaps we have underestimated what our world has never known." The words felt like a turning point, a shift in centuries of tradition and prejudice. The queen's golden gaze swept across the hall before returning to. "He has not only demonstrated courage and intelligence," she said softly, almost to herself, "but the heart that this child deserves. Our future depends on such strength and trust." Felt his chest tighten. The weight of her words was immense, but it was also a promise. Not just a promise of duty, but a recognition of humanity itself. He realized that humans, often dismissed as fragile and insignificant, could inspire, protect, and change the course of civilizations if given the chance. As the court began to whisper again, this time with nods and signs of acceptance, the queen placed a hand on shoulder. It was small, yet it carried a world of meaning. "Together we will guide our future," she said, "and together we will teach them that courage is not limited by form, but by spirit." For the first time, allowed himself to feel the full weight of accomplishment. He had come as a visitor, a representative of a species dismissed as myth. Now he stood recognized, not only by the queen, but by an entire empire. The nobles would test him again, the challenges would continue, but he had proven that humans could rise to the highest heights, that courage and intelligence could change perception, and that the heart of a human could stand alongside the greatest powers in the galaxy. Later, as he walked through the palace gardens with the queen, reflected on everything that had happened. The attack, the sabotage, the court's doubt, it had all led to this moment of clarity. Humans were no longer a myth. Humans were a force capable of shaping the future. And he, a single human among 1,000 alien traditions, had become proof of that truth. In the quiet of the floating gardens, with the light of twin moons reflecting off silver fountains, understood the essence of his journey. Recognition was not given, it was earned. And through courage, ingenuity, and heart, humans could earn it in ways that no one, not even the most advanced civilizations, could ever forget. Months passed since the palace attack, and the court had finally begun to accept as more than a human outsider. He moved through the crystal halls with ease now, his presence no longer questioned but respected. Yet for him, the most important recognition was not from the nobles. It was from the queen, whose trust he carried like a flame in his chest. Together, they had faced doubt, danger, and betrayal, and now their bond had grown into something neither of them could ignore. The queen summoned to the balcony of her palace one evening. The silver oceans below shimmered under the light of twin moons, and the floating city sparkled like a constellation scattered across the sky. Her golden eyes reflected the moons, and in them saw not only trust but hope for a future neither of them had dared to imagine before. "There is something I must share with you," she said, her voice quiet but steady. "Our child will inherit not just my throne, but the future of both our worlds, and you will guide that future with me." Swallowed hard, emotion tightening his throat. The child she carried represented more than life. It symbolized a bridge between humans and a hope that two species could learn, grow, and thrive together. For the first time, he understood that his journey was not just about proving humanity's worth, but about shaping the destiny of an entire civilization. He reached out and took her hand, feeling the warmth and the weight of the trust she placed in him. "I will protect them," he said softly. "I will protect you, and I will do everything I can to honor the future we share." The queen smiled, a rare and tender expression that illuminated her golden features. "I do not doubt it, human," she said. "Even when others question, even when challenges rise, we will face them together. Our child will know strength, courage, and heart, all because of you." In the days that followed, continued to work alongside her, helping to guide the council, train the guards, and prepare for the challenges of leadership. The nobles still whispered, but now their voices carried respect rather than doubt. The human they had once dismissed as a myth had proven not only courage but wisdom, loyalty, and resilience. And slowly, humanity's name began to carry weight in a court that had never known it could. One quiet evening walked through the palace gardens, watching the twin moons reflect on silver fountains. The air smelled faintly of alien flowers, and yet it reminded him of home, of Earth's oceans and forests. He realized that humans, though often underestimated, carried something extraordinary. The ability to adapt, to endure, and to inspire. Might have strength, power, and knowledge, but humans brought heart, ingenuity, and hope into even the most impossible situations. When he returned to the queen's side, she looked at him with a mixture of pride and gratitude. "Do you see now, human?" she asked softly. "Even the smallest species can leave a mark on the universe. Even myths can become legends." Nodded, feeling a quiet pride swell in his chest. He had come as an ambassador, uncertain and cautious, yet he had become something greater, a protector, a partner, and a symbol of humanity's potential. The child they would raise together would inherit a legacy shaped not only by alien wisdom, but by human courage. As the twin moons rose higher in the sky, casting silver light over the floating city, felt the weight of possibility and promise. Humans were no longer whispers in stories or distant myths. They had proven that courage, heart, and determination could change the course of empires. And together, he and the queen would guide that future, ensuring that the child who would one day inherit the throne knew both strength and compassion, both wisdom and courage. For the first time, allowed himself to imagine a future without fear, one where humans were respected, trusted, and remembered, one where they could stand shoulder to shoulder with the most advanced civilizations in the galaxy. In that moment, the impossible felt real. Humanity had a place in the stars, and the child of the queen and the human would carry that hope into the next generation, a living testament to what could happen when courage met trust, when heart met destiny. The queen's hand rested on his shoulder, steady and warm. "Together," she whispered, "we will shape the future." and for the first time in his life felt that humans were more than myths. They were legends in the making.